and welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. He's a corporate event host, comedy magician, and of course, public speaking coach, no other than Mr. Tom Elliott. Welcome to Book 101, Mr. Tom, and can you please introduce more about yourself?
Hi, Daniel. Great to be with you. My name's Tom Elliott, and for years now, I've been a corporate event host and comedy magician. Performing kind of comedy and tricks all over here in the United Kingdom, travel extensively around here, doing events, and more recently, taken what I know from being a bit of a showman, if you like, and applying it to people that want to become public speakers and helping them to refine and get confident in that craft. So, love what I do. On a mission to bring a bit of joy and to help people as well as they develop the art of public speaking or standing on stage in front of people.
Mr. Tom Elliott, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. What's the fundamental difference in mindset and purpose between being a showman and being an impactful speaker? When did this distinction become clear to you?
Yeah, sure. So I think there's a big overlap, and I think that actually speakers are showmen. You may not think about yourself as a showman when you're a speaker, but absolutely, if you're an effective speaker, if you're building rapport and engaging an audience, you're basically doing all the things that a showman is trying to do. Quite often, though, people think about them separately, and they think a speaker has to. Uh, the way they present is very different to as if they were performing. I think um, there's a big overlap, and I think if you can apply the skills of performance to speaking, you're going to win over. If you look at comedians, I think comedians are some of the best communicators that we have in society. So I do kind of comedy and tricks. So my all my comedy is blended into the trick that I'm performing. But if you take a kind of traditional stand-up comedian, I don't know uh, who would be with your audience, Daniel, who might be kind of a known stand-up comic
My audience.
so if you look up Michael McIntyre, for instance,
Yes, yes.
a well-known comic, brilliant at what he does. He's probably an incredible communicator. When people watch him, the reason they laugh is obviously because he's funny and what he's saying is funny, but actually he's built rapport. He's very, very relatable. Uh, in that what he talks about, his audience connect with, and the way that he shares that, the ability to tell a good story, the energy with which he presents captivates that audience from the minute he walks on stage. And I appreciate he's well known and people are coming to know that they like him. But even if you had no idea who he is, the minute you saw him, he's very engaging because of his personality, his persona, the way that he presents himself. He's combined the art of public speaking effectively, but he's added elements of performance in there, and he's adopted some kind of techniques and ideas from performance and put them into uh, the context of a stand-up comic.
What experience or feedback prompted you to consciously move away from a poor or pure showmanship towards a more substantial speaking?
Sure. Just clarify your question for me, Daniel. So, are you saying? What is it from? What lessons can you learn from showmanship to bring to public speaking?
Yes, indeed.
Sure. Well, so I've got kind of 10 tips. So there's a number of books that have influenced these things. And so one of them is Talk Like Ted by Carmine Gallo. Um, if you're doing a TED Talks are really well known. If you're looking to a TED Talk, that is an excellent book to read. But That's primarily focused on people just kind of speaking. What I want to do today is wrap that around with tips from showmanship. So there's three other books I'm going to reference today. One is it's called Stand Up: A Professional Guide to Comedy Magic. Now you might have no interest in comedy magic whatsoever, but this book has some things in it which I'll reference today that will be really helpful to you. It's by a guy called Ian Keeble. Uh, then there's another magic book called Professional Secrets. Again, most of it won't be relevant to you if you're not into magical or performing tricks. It, but it's by a guy called Jeffrey Durham, and there's elements in there which I'll talk about that relate to showmanship and that you can take away if you're looking to speak. And then there's a final book which again is primarily focused on speaking this time. It's called How to Speak So People Really Listen, and it's by a guy called Paul McGee. So we'll work through these tips, and I'll reference those books as we go. The first one, though, is energy is everything. So your presence, your stage presence, hits before your words do. Before you say anything on stage, your audience are already making that judgment as to whether they're going to listen from here on in or whether they're going to like switch off and turn away. Uh, and the energy that you bring really matters. In this is referenced in Talk Like TED, but also Stand Up. And so in Stand Up by Ian Keeble, he talks about how the moment you walk on, you need to be able to captivate that audience. And particularly in the corporate world, I've seen managing directors get up on stage with no kind of energy or enthusiasm whatsoever, and they stand behind that podium, which blocks their body, which in itself, I think, distracts the audience because their kind of body language and posture is hidden by this big podium, and they speak in a very low energy voice. I've watched these people completely talk into the microphone with an audience that is not listening whatsoever. They're chatting away because they haven't won that audience over. They say it's like, I think it's like 7 seconds you have to win an audience. So here's what I always tell people to do. I always encourage people to think about what are your best qualities as a person. So forget public speaking, forget stagecraft, forget all of that. Just take a moment to think what are the qualities of your personality. So when I was right from when I was young, and even now, people have always said, Tom, you are kind of joyful, or you're positive, or you're enthusiastic. And so I've taken those traits and I've, even in my act, even in my performance, I've gone, right, how can I convey that trait to the audience? I want the audience to think I'm likable, that I'm positive, that I'm joyful. Uh, so for me to go on and do kind of an offensive act or um, kind of sweary or anything like that. Just it just wouldn't fit in my personality because it's not who I am. What I've done is I've tried to take the best parts of who I am, the things that people comment on, and then turn it up a notch, turn it up by 10% when I take the stage, because that is what helps people to connect with me. If I try and be someone else that I'm not, it's not going to work. People are going to see through that. What I say is be yourself on stage, but turn it up a notch. Turn up those characteristics a little bit so that the whole audience can see and engage with that, because it's that that builds rapport with your audience. Does that make sense?
Makes sense, Mr. Tom. You're a truly likable person. How do you balance authentic connection with the audience and the necessity or the necessary performance elements of a great talk?
Sure. So you you have to win them on that. But once you've got them, you can take them wherever you want to go. Um, if you think about some known comedians, so I like to define my personality as wide-eyed enthusiast. So I walk on stage and I reflect that in big kind of body or body language, posture, and the way that I speak, the way that I engage the audience. I try and reflect that enthusiasm, that positivity in there. But I can take them I can take them on a journey, because I do a little slot towards the end of my show where I tell a little mock story, and I have some gentle piano music coming on behind me. and it's a mock story, but I changed the atmosphere. I've gone from big body language to loud and positive, and then towards the end of my show, just before I hit my finale, I bring it down a level, and I start talking a little more softly, and the jokes are still there, the laughs are still there, but I've changed the atmosphere and I'm drawing them in a different way. I'm trying to do it now in my own voice now so that you can see the difference. And so once you've got the audience, once you've got that rapport, you can take them on a journey. So if you want to make a meaningful point, you can start here and build that positivity, but then you can draw them in and you can make your point. And there's things like pauses and volume and pace that make all the difference.
Make the difference indeed, Mr. Tom. How do you distill complex ideas into a crystal clear, actionable takeaways for the audience?
So this is about kind of nailing it down to its core point. I always say the best way of doing this, but also it's great for your confidence and your delivery on stage, is don't memorize a script. Because if you memorize a script, when you've written that script, you'll probably have put far too much detail in it. You'll probably fill it with all the stuff that overcomplicates it. If you start to memorize, not memorize, if you start to internalize the content of what you've written, it becomes like everyday conversation. If I asked you, Daniel, to tell me what you did at the weekend, you're not going to go away and write a script for that and then read it to me. That would be a boring way of telling me what you did at the weekend. Uh, you would probably fill it with all sorts of information that I don't need to know and that aren't interesting. Um, but if you have a natural conversation now, you'd be much more relaxed and you would tell me the core interesting parts because that it comes naturally to us. So why is it then, Daniel, that when people go on stage they come with this script and they read it out word for word, uh, and that causes other problems? Not only does it it make things more complex, but actually for them they're trying to memorize the everything they've written, and then if they skip a line or if they miss something or if they get a word wrong, it causes them to fluster and they get worried and scared and they think, oh no, I've gone wrong. What am I going to do? And they all of a sudden they've lost the audience. If they've internalized it and they're presenting on stage as if it's a conversation that they're talking about their weekend, all of those things come across much more simply because in conversation, we haven't got time to uh, go through all the detail. We go back and forth and we explain things simpler.
Simpler indeed. Mr. Tom, how do you handle stage fright?
Here's the thing: I always think stage fright is an interesting concept because let's think about this for a moment. What is it that messes people up when they're on stage? If you've ever watched someone fall apart on stage when they're trying to give a presentation and they forget their line, or they they get really nervous, twitchy, or whatever. When you watch someone fall apart on stage, what is it that causes that? It's the nerves, it's the mindset, it's the fear of everything going wrong that ultimately makes things go wrong. And so, one of the key factors when presenting is that confidence is what gives you the ability to present really well. And so it's one of those things you kind of have to fake the confidence, fake it until you make it with confidence. Because if you go on and you let those nerves uh, control your ability to present, it will all go wrong. You'll forget where you're at. You'll mess things up. You'll say things. You might even say something that you didn't mean to say. It's not thought through. It's not planned. If you go on with confidence, if you prepare for that uh, presentation, so much so that you feel confident in it, that you've internalized it, that you've thought about portraying the best parts of your personality, you will be so much better. And so you have to fake it until you make it. And here's the thing: a lot of people, when things do start to go wrong, I've been on stage and felt like the audience is tough, that they're just not with me. Um, I did earlier this week. I did an event. It was a corporate conference, and I was doing a bit of entertainment. Probably in some ways at the worst part of the or not the worst, the most challenging part of the conference, and that is it's just before the main keynote, and people are just about sitting in their seats. They're not quite, it's like a pre show uh, entertainment. Now, that is a tough spot to perform in because they're not fully focused on what's happening on stage. Uh, it's very hard to engage. And the temptation when you're on stage and it feels like this is tough, the temptation is to speed up and to hurry, hurry, hurry. The temptation is to get louder and you end up shouting so much. And the temptation is to do all of these things. The nervous twitches start to come out. But if you slow down and you just carry on as if this was a normal presentation, actually the audience begins to turn. The audience can sense your confidence or they can sense your lack of confidence and they follow through. I don't know about you, my wife cannot watch Britain's Got Talent because she cannot bear the thought of watching someone falling apart on stage. It makes her cringe and she feels for them and she just can't bear it. A lot of people find it amusing. She can't bear it. And in a live situation, that's how an audience feels when they feel your nervousness or your stage fright. They start to uh, feel it in themselves. They feel awkward for you. You don't want to be starting a presentation with an audience feeling for you. You want them uh, seeing your confidence and buying into that confidence with their attention.
Mr. Thomas, a corporate event host, comedy magician, and public speaking coach, what are your short term and long term goals?
So I'm really pushing into the corporate world at the minute. So my short-term goals are to do more of that. I'm loving the corporate award ceremonies and fundraising galas for big charities. I'm really loving that. I really love seeing people get honoured for what they do and raising money for good causes. And so to be part of those events as a host and entertainment, bringing joy to those people is a real honour. So I'm really pushing for that and growing that side of my work now. Long term, I love variety entertainment. I love everything from comedy and magic and music and um, acro. What do they call it? Acrobat stuff. Really enjoy that sort of work. So, long term goal is to produce my own professional touring variety show that will tour theatres.
Wow, looking forward for that, Mr. Tom, and good luck for your all your goals and more success. And
Thank you so
what
much, Daniel.
you are most welcome. And what will be your piece of advice for those people out there who want to be a corporate event host, want to a comedian, magician, as well as a public speaking coach?
Sure. I would say, going back to my one of my early points, and that is define and refine who you are. What's the personality, the persona that you want to draw out on stage, whether it's hosting, whether it's performing. Figure out what are the best characteristics that you have as a person. What is it that people have said about you that they've complimented you on? Draw that out as you enter the stage, and whatever you're doing, you will grasp the audience in a much better way than if you just go out and speak like this and hello, ladies and gentlemen. Uh, Draw out those personality traits and then turn them up a notch, and you'll become much more engaging.
Thank you for your advice, Mr. Tom, and hoping that our listeners are watching right now will follow your advice. And can you please recommend your books that influence your journey?
Absolutely. So, Talk Like Ted by Carmine Gallo, Stand Up, A Professional Guide to Comedy Magic by Ian Keeble, and Professional Secrets by Jeffrey Durham, and then How to Speak So People Really Listen by Paul McGee.
Thank you so much for those recommendations. And what is the number one mistake speakers make when trying to level up and keeps them stuck in a showman mode?
They don't build rapport. They go on, they deliver their thing. It becomes very self. It becomes very about themselves and what they're doing. They forget that out there, there's 100 people, or 50 people, or 1,500 people uh, that they're trying to engage. They don't build rapport. actually building rapport, if you can just do that, you will present so much better.
If someone wants to start this transition today, what is the single most important habit or mindset shift they should focus on?
The best habit you can get into for public speaking is getting out there and doing it. Start wherever, even if it's 5 people that you're speaking to. Uh, Next time you go out, if it's 5 people, don't present from a seat like most people would in that scenario. Stand up and deliver it like a presentation as if there were 1,500 people in the room. Uh, you learn public speaking or stagecraft or stage presence by getting out there and doing as much of it as possible. The only way of learning is by failing or by realizing, they were a hard audience, they were a good audience, and you can learn by instinct and by nature just how you can turn that around. And so my best advice, if you want to get into anything public speaking or presenting up front, is to say go and do loads of it as much as you can and treat every opportunity as if you're presenting in front of 100 people, 200 people.
Very well said, Mr. Tom. Very well said. Beautifully articulated. How do you define and measure the success of presentation now comparing to when you focus more on showmanship?
Sure. So, as I said, I think there's a big overlap. And so, how would I define uh, presentation with showmanship skills? I would say that it builds greater rapport with the audience. It gives you more confidence. The speaker becomes more confident. And ultimately, the message that you have for the world is heard and received much better.
Mr. Tom, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and of course, my book 101 review in fifth season, comedy 101 and six, and in second season, and food 101 in fifth season, too, geography 101 and fourth season, and my baby podcast Law 101 and Mental Health 101. Love Letters in fourth season, Movie 101 Review and Music 101 in its fourth season, and Science 101 and Sex 101 in its first
Wow, Daniel, you
season.
are the king of podcasting.
Thank you so much. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. Mr. Tom, if you or let's say defining the shift of being showmanship, what lasting impact do you hope for level up presentations to have on your audience long after they leave the room?
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you can really build rapport and connect with an audience, then whatever it is, whatever message you're giving, whether you're a politician wanting people to vote for your party, whether you're a comedian wanting to make them laugh, whether you're a businessman trying to sell a pitch to investors, or whether you're a preacher trying to convey your beliefs, whatever message uh, you've got, or whatever your aim is on stage, if you can connect with an audience, if you can build rapport, if you can engage them creatively, uh, it it will make a huge difference. And I believe the answer to that is everything we've talked about, from showmanship as you apply that to public speaking.
Mr. Tom Elliott, thank you so much for sharing again your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your advocacy as well as your business itself?
Sure. So if you want to find out more about what I do, if you type in Tom Elliott, corporate event host or comedy magician in Google or your search engine, you will find more about me. Elliott is spelled with 2 L's and 2 T's. Otherwise, you get a Scottish psychic, which is another act altogether. But there we go. Thanks for having me, Daniel.
No worries at all, Mr. Tom. And people, let's support Mr. Tom Elliott because if you support him, more and more and more empowering showmanship to come. So, Mr. Tom, Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Daniel.
More to come, people. See you soon.